In our series, A String of Pearls, DutchbuzZ contributors speak to people who have made an exceptional contribution to our local community. People whose passion for what they do have had an added value for the city of The Hague.
Carolyn E Vines, intercultural trainer, life coach, and author of the book Black and Abroad, released in 2010. First moving to the Netherlands for love, Carolyn has made a career for herself in The Hague by helping Dutch institutions and individuals prepare for a more inclusive society. By acting as a bridge between locals and newcomers, she helps natives and foreigners alike cope with a rapidly shrinking world. Having lived and worked with locals in the Netherlands for over 10 years as a foreign Black woman, she possesses insight into what it means to connect with and understand different people. In this interview, Carolyn spoke to Olivia Nelson about Dutch life, identity, and how she feels about her book 10 years later.
There was a big project at one of the hogescholen here in the Netherlands, and they were looking for someone to train their teachers in how to manage the intercultural classrooms. So you have nowadays a lot more students from other countries who are coming to study in the Netherlands because it's a really good system. Not only that, but you have a lot of diversity within the Netherlands. You have ethnic diversity, you have racial diversity, you have religious diversity. And teachers were finding it very difficult to engage all of their students in a way that was conducive to their learning or their learning experience. So I designed a few modules on how to engage all of their students, and I went into the hogeschool and ran this training. And I started, of course, before the Corona quarantine, had started going into companies to train employees, because of course the world is much more, because of technology, it's a lot smaller, and businesses that normally conducted their day-to-day business with the telephone, well, now they're busy with computers, they're traveling and having much more contact with people from other countries. So this intercultural training is something that is very helpful, I think, also to businesses. But in the last year or so, I have found that my heart is really with my coaching. So I'm putting the intercultural training on the back burner. Not completely stopping, but I'm putting my focus on coaching.
And can you talk about your life coaching career and how that started and how you moved into that?
Sure. Well, it came out of the writing of my book, Black and Abroad, because that was something that I had never had any aspirations as a writer, but I wrote, I journaled, I wrote poetry, I did some creative writing just on my own. And after I had left the University of Utrecht, I was at University College for a number of years in academia as a tutor and teaching. I left in part because we started a family, and I was doing a lot of traveling between where I live and Utrecht. I had to travel an hour and a half one way. And that and teaching, I was still writing a dissertation, plus being a new mother overseas, where I did not have the support that I really needed. I knew I had to change something, so I decided to choose for my family and give up my work. And at some point, I knew I needed to write this book. I wanted to inspire Black women, particularly Black American women, to consider traveling abroad as a means to understanding, or not even just understanding, but being able to define who they are, being able to look at themselves through eyes other than those, let's say, eyes that had been shaped by American culture. That had been my process, and I learned so much about myself through traveling and living abroad. I wanted to give something back to Black women, and that's what got me writing the book. And once I finished writing the book, I thought, well, I think I can help more people with the experiences that I have had in life. I felt I could use those experiences to help people in general. And so I actually went to a coach myself to try to figure out, okay, in what way could I help people the best? And that led me to life coaching. And so, I did some research and found a school that just resonated with me. And that's, I don't know if I can say the school or not, but
I'm sure you can, yes.
Yeah, okay. No, it was IPEC. It's an American company, but they had just branched out to London. And there is now a school, IPEC, here in the Netherlands. But what spoke to me most was being trained to help people go to the core. It was called Core Energy Transformation. So with this model of coaching, you help people go to the core of what is, what is blocking them, what is, let's say, bothering them. So in this coaching, we don't necessarily deal with or focus on problems that people are having, but we start helping clients to ask, so what is really going on here? What is causing a particular problem or issue or blockage? And that has to do with energy levels, how much energy you have, how high or low your energy is. And I started combining that with writing in my coaching. So, and that's where I am today.
What do you find is the most rewarding part of your work here as a life coach?
As a life coach, the most rewarding part of that is my favorite point is when a client, and it always happens, it's uncanny that it always happens. A client will say to me, Carolyn, I'm going to say something, I want to tell you something, and I have never told this to anybody before. And when I hear those words, I know some true transformation has occurred or is about to occur. And then they typically tell me that they have had a dream or an aspiration, that there is this goal or dream or aspiration that they've had since childhood that has been swept away, that has been buried for some reason or another. And of course we go to that reason, what is it that that has kept you from pursuing this dream or goal? And then the work begins. And that for me is the most rewarding part, is to see people reconnecting with something that they have always wanted to do. It was a very interesting process because I ended up self-publishing. I had gone through the traditional method of querying publishing houses, and I only worked queried publishing houses in the United States because that's what I knew. And I just sent a letter to I think a handful of houses, but there was one that when I read what they were all about, I thought this is the place where I would like my book to be published. So I just sent a query letter, introducing myself and the project. And I think within 3 months, I got a response from the editor saying, I'm interested. Can you send a full proposal? And in the end, the editor got back with me and said, well, we're not necessarily looking for a memoir, because this is what I was wanting to write, a memoir. She said, but your story is one that needs to be told. And if you would be willing to rewrite it and maybe write a how-to, maybe how to live abroad as a Black woman, then it's something we might be able to consider. And let's say I thought long and hard about that, and I tried to rewrite it and try to make it fit into this mold, and I couldn't do it. I thought, well, that is not the story that I really want to tell. So I thought, no, I'm going to tell my own story in my own way, and I'm going to look, into how to publish it myself. And at the time, one of my dear friends, Jo Parfit, I had connected with her, and she helped me to publish it myself.
What was the reception to your book like at first?
It's only ever been positive. I partnered with another friend, Neve Nabron, who had written The Singing Warrior, and actually Jo Parfit had connected us. And we did, together we did a launch, we did a book launch, and it was amazing. The audience was very, very receptive to both of our works. In the years that followed, I got many emails from Black women who were, let's say, appreciative that I had written this book. And I find it very raw. It's very, I think one of the best parts of the book is that it is very emotional. I think, you feel the reader feels everything that I felt. And that's, it's not always very easy. So it's very raw emotionally. And so women in particular who had emailed me were very appreciative. And, some of the comments that they wrote were, this is exactly how I feel. I've always felt, but I have never been able to put it into words. So thank you for writing. I had long contact with a man in particular who just said, listen, I really also appreciate this because it also helps me to understand my girlfriend. And, he had given, the book to his girlfriend, and, we kept in touch for a couple of years. But also non-Black women who had contacted me. For example, several, I would say white women had contacted me through email because they had adopted Black children. And they just wanted to know if I had any advice on raising, Black children as white women, on raising, these interracial families in the Netherlands, what the experience might be like. And I had a number of Eastern European women who wrote and said, but that the book really resonated with them as well. So, I don't know, I don't think it sold thousands of copies, but the copies, the people who did buy it, I believe were very satisfied and they received it very well. So, my goal to inspire people, it worked. I achieved my goal.
Your book was released in 2010. Mm-hmm. The world has changed quite a bit since then. Mm-hmm. Since Black and Abroad was released, the social landscape of the Netherlands and the world at large has changed a lot. Is there anything you said in your book that you no longer find to be true? Do you have a different perspective on Dutch life, having lived here so long?
That's a really good question. Well, I think the main thing that has changed in the Netherlands has been in the last 5 years or so, with I think the whole Zwarte Piet issue has really blown open a lot of issues around race in the Netherlands. I think it's a very positive thing. I'm pretty sure in the book I addressed the Black Pete issue, from my first contact with it, and I do remember writing that of course there's racism in the Netherlands. I think racism is also a very human thing. And Dutch people are just as human as the rest of humanity, right? So of course there's racism. But at the time, that it was institutionalized in the way that it is in the United States, I didn't see it. I do think there are some issues there in institutionalized racism here in the Netherlands. And again, it's not as extreme as it is in the United States. But I do see some things where, I question, where are the Black, or, not just Black, but, how can I say it in a politically correct way? People of color, where are the ethnicities in those higher levels of business, executives? Where are the professors? I don't believe that Afro-Dutch or Dutch people of color are necessarily represented as they should be. I do believe, though, that the Netherlands is waking up to this issue. And one way that I give Dutch people credit, and I found this not only through my private contacts with Dutch people, but also as I was doing the intercultural training. Dutch people are so open to looking at this aspect of their culture. They are really receptive. They are, and mostly they're not as defensive so when you're not defensive, you're going to be more open to just listening and taking in all that you can about racism, about discrimination, about the role that, culture plays in perpetuating stereotypes or, just ways of thinking. And I'm very optimistic about this topic in the Netherlands for the future.
What is something that you would have liked someone to have told you when you first got here? What advice would you have liked to have been told?
Honestly, that the weather absolutely sucks. I mean, seriously, the weather sucks. My husband did not tell me that. And it is an issue for me. I think it is for a lot of people. It's an issue. My hair, for example, does not do well in this climate. And just, the gray, the grayness, it just really, it does affect me. And I wish I had known that. I wish I had been prepared for that.
Now I asked you to select a few personal items that have special meaning for you. I asked you to bring one item from your desk or your work, because perhaps you no longer have a desk now with coronavirus, and also one item of sentimental value from your family life, and one thing that is special to your life prior to your move to the Netherlands. And I'm curious to know what you chose.
Well, for my desk, I did choose I have this traveler's notebook. And I do everything in this, it's like a like bullet journal type thing. And I do everything in that. I journal, I plan, write my schedule, I do my planning. That has just changed how I live my day. And it changes. It's like I no longer have like a necessarily work here and life there. I've been able to combine it in this way that I use in my traveler's notebook. So I absolutely love it. I get my little stickers out and my washi tape and decorate it, and it's fun and it's pretty, and I'm always looking in it and looking at it. And I find that it really boosts my creativity as well. So that's the work thing.
And from your family life?
I have this picture, and I may have cheated a little bit, because this also holds true for the third thing, what I brought from my life before the Netherlands. I have this huge oil painting that my Uncle Marvin painted. Now, I remember this painting hanging in my childhood home when my parents were married, so I must have been 4 or 5, and I remember this painting. And my mother ended up with this painting. It hung in our house after my parents divorced. And I always loved this painting. It was this not really abstract painting, but it was of this, the back of this lifeguard chair with a lifeguard sitting in it and looking out over the water and this amazing sunset. And I could get lost in just looking at this painting, wondering what this person's thinking about, and just looking at how it was painted. And so at any rate, that represents my, just my childhood. And, whenever I think about it, I do, remember my family as a unit when I was younger. And then I hadn't seen it. I went to college, I lived on my own and so forth. And I hadn't seen this painting, and I actually forgot about it until I moved here. My husband and I, were visiting my mom, and, she said to me, I have something for you. I'm like, ooh, what is it? And she brought out this painting. And she said, I felt like, this is yours. It's from your father's family. So I think you should take this. And my husband absolutely loved it as well. So we brought it back with us to the Netherlands, and it has hung in our dining room ever since. And what makes that so special to me in terms of my family now is the dining room is, the one place in our house, and even in our first house, because we've moved, is where we all come together. we all, as much as we can, so probably 5 nights a week, we eat dinner together, which I love about Dutch life, by the way. But we connect as a family in the dining room, and that painting is always there. And so for me, it just is this symbol of, bringing my past life here with my present life, but also connecting my family now, my family here, with, who I was before I even came here and before I had my own family.
I think that's really beautiful. I think that's really important, especially if most of your family is over in America and you're here by yourself mostly.
Yeah.
Now you're also an author and you're also highly educated, so I assume you like to read. Do you have a favorite book you want to talk about?
I have lots of favorites, but the one that always comes to mind that I, tell everybody about is a book by a Hungarian Canadian author. You may have heard of him, Gabor Mate. And he wrote When the Body Says No. And it for me has to be the most powerful book I've ever read up to now. And it's self-explanatory when the body says no, and it just talks about the link between emotions and the physical body. So what happens in the physical body when we experience certain emotions, and more importantly, what happens when we are unable to acknowledge and express anger. And that book just changed my life. If you have read Black and Abroad and understand the childhood that I had, then it would also explain why this book has just been so transformative to me. And I read different parts of it, over, and it just changed my life.
What advice would you have for other recently landed Black women or people of color, or for foreigners in general arriving here?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So I'm going to give the easy answer since we're at the end, because I do believe this: learn the language. Make that your top priority. Even if you're only here for a couple of years, try to learn the language. I think the Dutch people will let you in when you at least try to speak their language, make an effort. That would be my piece of advice.
That was Carolyn E Vines, an American author and life coach in The Hague. I'm Olivia Nelson for DutchbuzZ.
DutchbuzZ, your weekly dose of inspiration from some of the city's special people.